Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Swire. You can also call me the promo guy. My guest today is Brent Basham. He's the founder of Poddit. Brent has been a podcast host and also a tech enthusiast. So now he actually founded Poddit to bridge his passion together. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite subject right now is how to guest on other people's podcasts to increase your credibility and trustworthiness for your business. How you doing, Brent?
Hey, doing great, Swire. Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Can you please tell the viewer and listener a quick bio about yourself and how you started, Poddit, and how you were able to help podcast hosts and podcast guests?
Yeah, so it started back. I went back to school for a computer science degree later in life, and met a friend who was also back in school at the college, and we ended up working together after, and we both had children, and so we were having these conversations about digital immigrants. We were the very last digital immigrants raising the very first digital natives. And this was never going to happen again in history. So he said, we should start a podcast about this. We were having all these interesting conversations. And I said, well, that's fantastic, but what is a podcast? I had no idea. It's 2014. No idea. Right. And so anyway, we grabbed some mics and had the dreaded Blue Yeti at the time. And we just went about it and we started recording, and it was an amazing experience. So what happened, though, was after a little bit of time, we started bringing on guests onto the show. And this is where it kind of leads into Poddit. We did that for about 2 years. Our listeners, they would email me from the delivery room of their child being born, saying how we had brought so much value to them. They felt better equipped to be a dad, stuff like that. But it wasn't me and Andrew. It was because of the people we were bringing on the show, the content we were being able to share with them. And so I really fell in love with just the medium of podcasting and the guest idea, bringing somebody on your show. So fast forward a little bit, we kind of pod faded because being a dad is hard when you're also doing a full podcast, right? And so we ended up putting that on pause so I could focus a little bit more on the kids. And but it was always something I'd loved and always wished to go back to. But a couple years later, we were looking around, and I used to go on Amazon. I used to go do all these different kind of crazy things to find guests. It wasn't like it is now. And it was very difficult. So we said, well, maybe we should try to solve this problem. And that's when we come up with the idea to create Poddit to connect guests and podcasts together.
So I know there are two sides of, this story that we're discussing. One is you're a host, you're trying to find a good guest. But then I think the concept that most people when I talk to them, they don't know what's the value of being a guest on other people's podcasts. Can you touch on that a little bit? And obviously, that's, one of my goals in 2021 is be a guest on more podcasts.
Yeah. So I guess it depends a little bit if you're a podcaster yourself or if you're just somebody that has a thing to promote or you just want to share your expertise. Obviously, when you become a guest on a podcast, you're going to be able to share with that audience. And what's interesting there is podcasters have a relationship with their audience. It's not so much like YouTube or some of these other ones where it's very click on, click off, 2 minutes and you're gone. People are listening. 80% of people listen to almost all of the podcasts. They come back and listen. That's why you hear podcasters talk about how many downloads I get per episode. That's because they get the same number of downloads every episode, a lot of times trending upward. That's because people keep coming back to listen. And so they've built a relationship with the host. They feel like they're in the room with the host. They feel like they're friends with the host. And when you come on as a guest, you're able to leverage that to a certain extent. And because you're getting credibility from the host has thought enough about you to bring you to their audience. So that's hugely powerful, right? And so you're going to get introduced to all these people. Number two, you're going to be able to network with the host, which I think is a very underutilized thing. The conversations that happen sometimes before or after the interviews, you get access to people. We get access on our show to people I should have never had access to simply because we had a platform, right? And so being able to connect with people that way. And another thing I think people don't always realize is the value of credibility and backlinks on Google. So like, let's say you have never been on a podcast before and you got a brand new book out, for example, and you go out and you get on a few podcasts. Even if they're smaller podcasts, when people go to search for you, you're going to show up in Google. They're going to be able to play the episodes, things like that. And you're going to have credibility right there. They don't know how many downloads, how big these shows are. right? And also podcasters typically, if they have a website, will put a link back to your site, which helps you with SEO, which is effectively Google juice of how you climb up in the rankings because you get people linking to you. And so when you go out on as a guest multiple times or as like a consistent strategy over time, you're going to start to get a bunch of backlinks to your website, which helps you grow up the rankings. So there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, another way that I think add on to what you're saying is, there are services that you could put in the audio and then it will give you the transcript for the
Absolutely.
entire show. So then obviously you're going to talk about your business. There will be keywords that, probably you should say during the podcast. So now that you could create a blog post, just be the episode that you want other people's podcasts, and then you write a description that becomes very good content. We're touching on SEO and, searches. And then if you want to go one step further, I would even do a press release on websites to talk about, the episode, what it's about, first to give more awareness. Let's say if you're really promoting a book, to talk about that book. Now you're being on podcasts and people will see that, wow, he's going on different shows to talk about his books. Maybe it's worthwhile to read the book. And then you create more awareness for your business and company. I think one of the concepts that I actually learned from one of my guests is we are all the expert in our industry, but are you the known expert for the industry? Being the known expert is very important. When we think about any industry that we're in, we could automatically think about an expert that will go to a TV channel or people will get quotes on. Would it be better for your business if that person is you? So that's one way you can definitely do that, by being a guest on podcasts.
Yeah, and a lot of the podcasts are in a particular niche that you're in, right? So when you get on multiple podcasts in that vein, a lot of times, like you said, people will bump into you here and then they see you over there and they hear you over here. And all of a sudden you start to move toward that expert that they know and trust, right? So if you put some effort into it, it can really pay off.
So I think time is an issue. I did talk to some people and to encourage them to guest on other people's podcasts, because I know that they like to talk, right? They're not too shy. They can really speak about their subject. But then I think the challenge for people thinking about being a guest is time, right? Time is money. So I know I identify, let me know if there are more categories. There are 3 categories. One is the DIY approach, which is you connect with the host and you present why you should be a guest. That's one way. It's your time. Another way is a subscription model, kind of like Poddit is doing. You become a membership, and if you pay for a membership, you get more access as a guest. And another way is you pay a full service agency to represent you, to connect you with podcast hosts that are relevant to your content. So can you talk about each one, and how would you suggest people to consider each options?
Yeah, so do it yourself is probably the most time intensive. I used to do this a lot with my old show, but currently it's also the broadest in terms of the number of podcasts available to you, because there's nothing in, whether they're full service or subscription, that's going to be throttled based on the number of podcasts that are available to you. So if you just go on iTunes or wherever your listen notes or something and search. Now, the tricky part is finding the right shows, looking to see if they're actually even looking for guests, et cetera, right? But I advocate that. I actually advocate both the first 2 approaches for sure. And if you have the money, maybe the third approach. So do it yourself would be, and I don't know if I'd start there, but you can definitely go do that. Look on iTunes, find the website, chase down everything. Be prepared though. It's going to take time. And also make sure you understand, no matter which approach, well, the first 2 approaches, when you're cold reaching out to somebody, your percentage of actual getting booked is usually, like, we see about 33%. So about 1 in 3 pitches are going to get accepted. And that's partly because of, the better you do your pitch, the better chances you have. But also it's partly because the podcasters have a limited number of slots available. And if they start to get any kind of notoriety at all, they're going to have a lot of people coming at them. So it's very important, whatever approach you use, make sure you listen to the show, make sure you do a good pitch. We'll get into that. Subscription model, I guess that would be, so platforms like ours. The idea there is that, and again, we have a very good free model. I said 33%. We give you 4 free requests per week to reach out, and you get unlimited requests. Podcasts can reach out to you. So you should be able to go on our platform and book at least 1 to 2 interviews a week from our platform and this is the thing, it saves you a lot of time because all the podcasts there, you can search, you can browse, you can look at our feed, you can do all those things, and then you can identify the right shows and quickly do a pitch and quickly do another pitch versus, when you chase the internet around, it can take time. So that's one approach. And there's a couple other platforms out there as well. Those are good as well. And then if you have the money and you really just don't want to put the time in at all, the white glove services can be good. They're just, for most people, they're probably cost prohibitive. I mean, they purposely target 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs is how they say it, because it's completely white glove. It's, we're going to help prep you for the interview. We're going to help you refine your pitch. We're going to do all this stuff, which is all very, very valuable if you fit that particular person and you don't want to go do the legwork yourself. Most of the people, I would say 95, 98% of the people, maybe 99%, don't have, you're talking thousands of dollars a month. Swire. I mean, so most people don't have that. And particularly if you're promoting something like a book, the ROI, it's just difficult, right? It's just difficult. So depending on what you're promoting, you can explore that as an option, but expect to pay a lot of money, but expect not to have to do much in terms of time. They're going to help you. Now, you are going to have to practice your pitch. That's across the board for all three. That's going to matter. And you're going to have to do right by the host and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's some differences there.
So since you're on that subject of making a pitch, so what will make a good impression for the show? Like, is it depending on the research at, knowing really what kind of topics they're looking for, or to make it visually more impacting, have a nice headshots? And then I know that some shows, when there are more, they're bigger shows, they will require you to have a microphone. You have to have a microphone.
Yep.
They require pre-interview. So they want to talk to you to see how you present yourself. And sometimes when we do like videos, like what we're doing right now, I've been on a show that they require me to see my setup, to see my camera setup before accepting me as a guest. So like, what will make a good impression? Like, and how much preparation would you recommend people if they think about guesting, as a strategy?
So it definitely varies, right? Like you said, some of the bigger hosts, but some of the indie, smaller hosts have certain requirements too, right? Because personalities are different and people think of their show differently. Some of the things across the board, though, that you would want to lead with is one, don't make too long of a pitch. Everybody doesn't want to read 10 paragraphs about you, right? And instead of thinking about here's me and here's how amazing I am, put that hat on of, hey, Swire, your show, here's what I like about it. Here's where I think I can add value to the audience. Here's a couple of topics. I heard this episode and you talked about this. Have you thought about this angle? It's not rocket science. It's really not. But you'd be surprised at how many of the pitches, and you probably get them too, where they don't even know what my show's about. They don't have a clue. They haven't put in any kind of effort whatsoever. So you're better off doing a little bit of due diligence. Now, you can do it in a timely fashion. You don't have to go overboard. Some people do, but you don't have to get results. But if you don't do any effort, just expect that the effort's going to be in pitching multiple people, because a lot of people are going to tell you no, or just not even reply because you didn't even try, so that's important. Number two, definitely listen to their show. I would say at least some. You don't have to listen to every episode. You don't have to listen to all the episodes, but definitely have
one at least.
Something, right? And so, because you want to know what it's about. Now it's sometimes a little different too. Like if somebody reaches out to you, I'm talking about cold reaching out to them, right? Because they're getting that a lot. And so you want to stand out. And so anything you could do that makes it more personal, more relevant to them, they're going to care about that. Think about what they care about, not what you care about. And that may seem obvious, but there's so many emails I get where it's like, they're telling me what they care about, not what I care about, as a host. So that's pretty important, I think. That would be first and foremost. And if you do have a microphone and you have been on some interviews on our platform, we have the ability to embed past interview episodes so you can listen to them. It does a couple things. It lets you hear how good they are on mic, how their personality is, etc., expertise. But it also gives you a quality of audio too, right? So let them know if you have some equipment so that they know you know your way around. Again, don't belabor it. Don't get too specific, but definitely tell them, hey, I've got my own external microphone. I've been around. I know how to do this, that kind of thing.
Because as a host myself, I know how much time it seems, easy. You just sit down and talk, but then the things that we do on the back end, it's like hours. And then, people treat their podcast as their baby, right? is their brainchild, something that they put a lot of information on. And I like your idea, to listen to, some previous podcasts. And I think one time I was guesting on a show, I was referencing to what the host said 2 episodes ago. They were so impressed, I see them a smile on their face, but then it's relevant to our conversation. So I said, you did bring up that point 2 episodes ago. And I think that, in our conversation, this is important matter. So the conversation just go on, think about you having a real conversation with a human being. So you got to show interest in the other person, not just all about you. Yes, I know we all like to talk about ourselves, but think about, the person on the other end, how would we able to engage a better conversation than it's just a one way. So I think the idea is, I know that you might have a product, service, or a book that you want to promote, but then think of it like a conversation. And if they are a good host at the end or during the conversation, they'll ask you if there's anything that you wanted to promote or talk about. Then there's a good time, a cue for you to mention, but just don't go on a show. It's not an infomercial, right?
Right.
It's a conversation. So the best.
Sorry, I did have an episode as a host where we had somebody link drop almost the entire way through the episode. We had to stop it and tell them, look, it's not even just that it bothers us as hosts. The listener is getting this weird experience where it's interrupting the conversation, or they keep referencing the book in a way that's like, oh, you need to go buy my book to see that or whatever. And it was just www. They always said the www too. And so it was really, I think that if the guest understood just a little bit about what it would be like from the guest, from the audience side and from the host side, that goes a long way.
Yeah. So since we are saying, we encourage people to be a guest, right? So obviously we, give them something what not to do, but let's give them something what they should do, how they're able to use the content to market themselves. So I think that's the reason why, I'm trying to encourage people to do that. Can you name some of the case study that we're talking about? People being guests on the podcast able to excel or increase their business.
So it happens a lot. I think clients get, one of the things where I've seen it work really, really well, and I think this is something you want to mention too, is having a good call to action. A lot of people leave that part off. Right. And so they'll go through and they'll do the social promotion and all that stuff. But the people listening to your show, you have their attention. You get to the end of the episode and it's just, okay, thanks for being there. And there's nothing there because maybe they like Swire and now they like me and they want to go connect with me, but I didn't really give them a path or something of value to do that. Right. So do your homework ahead of time, prepare, know what you're doing. And then as far as promoting, you can even promote beforehand. I don't see this very often, Swire, but I think it's great if I know I'm going to come on your show, and we did it because it's a live stream, but if I know I'm going to come on your show and it's a recorded podcast, I can tell people, hey, I just got, booked on Swire's show. Looking forward to it. We're going to be recording here, and you're just giving them a shout out. And that goes really, really far for sort of leveraging that social connectedness, right? So go follow them on social, promote before, and then definitely promote after. A lot of hosts will take the time to give you something great. Even if they don't, go out of your way to elevate them and appreciate them letting you be on their platform. Right. And then that'll get you more referrals and everything else. But yeah, it can translate into sales. No doubt about it. But use that CTA, because a lot of times people don't want to listen and then buy, or see a post on Facebook and then buy. They're starting a relationship. So what you're doing with that CTA is letting them begin the relationship, so then they can start to know, like, and trust you, and they can buy from you, because a lot of times they don't immediately know you and then trust you that quickly. Right. So you're trying to get them into your ecosystem and get them to a place where they can, you're somebody I want to follow, I want to purchase from.
Yeah, I like that idea, because in regular business, I do ask for referral if I know that the client, after they receive the product, they're happy. So kind of like that, think of that mindset in a podcast host. If after the show, you help them promote it and you spread the word and you go on all your social media platform. Sometimes, when I'm on the show, we write blogs about that episode. So it's helped cross promote, with the host, and they were really happy about it. And I will now send them a follow-up email and thank you for the opportunity. And I'll ask for referrals. Do you know if other hosts that that might think my conversation is valuable? So they actually refer me to other podcast hosts with their recommendation. So for my pitch, it's a lot easier.
A lot
Now
easier.
I was referred by someone they trust, right? So it's a lot easier. And to your point, the idea for being a known expert, I actually learned it from one of my guests. Her name is Jennifer Hospital. She tell them you got to be the known expert in your industry. Being an expert itself, it's important, but not so if you're not known. So you got to find ways to promote yourself so you become the go-to person whenever that you talk and people will seek out for your information. Any platform and anywhere that you are.
Right. And that's why it's so important to have this as a consistent strategy over time. I think sometimes people think they just go in, pop in and do a couple of podcast interviews. They don't see some huge spike in their sales and they say, well, that doesn't work. And that's not how it works, right? If you do it consistently over time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you'll be surprised at how much all that stuff comes together and really elevates you over time. But again, it doesn't have to be crazy in the short term, but just do it consistently and see what happens over a period of time.
How would you encourage people who thought about the idea but don't know where to start? Like, how would they begin? Because I think for me, because I was hosting for a while before guesting, so I kind of have the right equipment, know what to expect. But for people, let's say a professional who are thinking about, I should start guesting because I want to share my ideas, share my tips, and grow my credibility. How would you suggest they start?
So obviously I'm biased. I have the platform, but we have a Facebook group as well, and there's other Facebook groups. What I like about some of these is that you're going into a situation where people are they're telling you, they're even posting, or on our platform they're posting, they're saying we're looking for this type of guest, and so when you reply or when you reach out to them, that they're looking and they're asking for such a thing, and you can fill that need. Because I don't know how you are, Swire, but when I first started, it was intimidating to reach out to people and get told no. It didn't feel comfortable. I still don't love it, but it happens. But so that's maybe a little easier if you're using like a platform or you're using a Facebook group versus just going out on the internet and doing it. You can do it that way. It's just going to take you more time. And also, to your point, referrals. If you're already in a medium where you're connecting with somebody and then they can easily connect you with somebody else socially, it's just easy to start getting that traction and getting those links on your site and starting to build that know, like, and trust. And all of a sudden you're starting to show up, But yeah, just stick your toe in the water and go after it.
Yeah, I think your Facebook group is great because there are hosts out there that say they're finding a guest, they're looking for guests in this type of topic. They will actually list what they're looking for. So if that's you, then you know that the chances of you getting a pitch through is a lot higher than if you pitch a show that didn't really need that topic or didn't really looking for guests right now. So I think by having that platform available on both sides, it's really helpful. So you actually now connecting like-minded people together because they're good guests and they're guests that are not so good. So the hosts are kind of choosy because it's, again, their baby, right?
Yeah.
So
and even it seems like a lot, but say you do a weekly show, 52 slots in a whole year isn't really a lot, right? And so if you start to get some traction or you find some guests, they can afford to be choosy, and probably they should be selective when they're trying to provide value for the audience. So show them why you can help them do that and you'll be good.
Yeah. And then if you encounter a good host, they'll actually ask you a question to bring you memories that you have forgotten. Like I've been on a recent show. They asked me how I started the business and asked me something that I've forgotten like 15 years ago that happened. And then it got me thinking, you actually get more idea about your business too. It got you thinking, and you obviously need to do more research to make sure that you really know your product and services in the back of your head. So it kind of improve what you do as well, because you need to improve on and give obviously valuable information for the listeners.
You know what? You just reminded me of a really good point too, Swire, is when you're new to guesting, don't be worried about the size of the show, because probably, or at least possibly, you're not going to be a great guest at first. this isn't maybe a muscle you've flexed before. You're not maybe good on mic or whatever else, and maybe you haven't figured that out. So go on shows that may be smaller. They're going to be more likely to let you come on, and you're going to still get the backlinks. You're going to still get the traffic, some traffic, and you're going to get better at it, and it's going to lead to referrals. So don't dismiss some of these especially newer shows, because you never know where those guys will go, right? They might become huge. But yeah, just get started and don't be worried about trying to go on Joe Rogan right away. Start with the lower ones and build your way up and build that network up, and just get out there and practice, because I think it's really important for you to practice and become good at it, just like you would with your job or any other thing. And then you can graduate up and start to take on. And when the audience is bigger, you want to be better at what you do. So that's just a tip, I think.
Yeah, I think, making notes is important. I think obviously you have key points that represent your business, right? So I'll write down the key point. Whenever I caught myself going off track, then I look at the key points again. Hopefully it brings me back to the point, because sometimes it's more casual. You can talk about live, you can talk about things that happens in your business, but sometimes they do want a certain message or technique or tips that you want to share. Then be on point. And it is hard, but then you got to listen to your podcast with your voice on it. If you listen to your voice on someone's podcast the first time, it's very weird.
Oh yeah.
Weird experience.
Oh yeah. It's not pleasant. It is not pleasant. And I think, to try to keep in mind for yourself, for the host, you're both there to bring value for the audience, not to promote your thing, not to do this. If people like what you're saying and there's value there, they'll figure out how to connect with you further. They'll figure out how you can help benefit them, but don't go there looking for something for yourself. Go there looking to provide something for other people. And if you do that enough times, I firmly believe that comes back to you more than you could ever put out. So.
Yeah, because the best expert, they are more willing to share. They share because they know that people will come back, because they are the top of the game. So they don't worry about competition. Obviously, there are competition out there, but then if I can able to position myself being the best in what I do, then I know people will come to me.
It's true. And you can posture that way before you're that big, right? So you can sort of show that and just do right by people from the beginning.
So Brent, I know we're talking about a lot of different platforms, and then what would be the best way to get the taste on it, on Poddit and then your Facebook group?
So you can search Poddit, Poddit on Facebook, and you can find our group. Come in there. I think we're, 4,000 something people in there. So, and we do regular posts to help you connect in there for sure. We're on Clubhouse too. And then obviously the platform is poddit.net. One cool thing about the platform, Swire, if you want, you can just go to poddit.net and go to the very top. There's a search bar. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything. You could just type in some searching, and then you can browse and you can see all the podcasts that are available, all the guests that are available, and see if there might be some matches for you. And then you can go through and sign up and do the onboarding and all that stuff too. So we've tried to make it real easy for you to be able to use the platform.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, there are podcasts on any subject that you can think of. If you think you are at a niche or you think you're weird, then there's still a podcast for that. There are podcasts for contractor who teach you how to do drywall better. There are people who survive a near-death accident, then they live to tell the story about it. There's just any one that you can think of. There's someone doing it already. So do go there and check it out. You'll be surprised. And then you probably, like Brent said, meet some like-minded individual that maybe you could do business with down the line.
Yeah, it can be business. And I wanted to also mention, I do it for business and for fun. So I went on into somebody's show and talked about a book I love, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's no business ROI on that one. It was just a fun hobby. We used to do our podcast about being a dad. So what's interesting about podcast interviews, you can do it and get that business ROI. I know that's a focus here, but if you have a hobby and you just want to go chat about that too, that's also an option. You can just find like-minded people to connect with and grow together. It's really fascinating medium.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Brent. Everyone got to check out poddit.net. And if you are listening to the podcast, please go ahead and send me a review and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Brent.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.